Okay.
Okay. Well, hello, this is Linda Gerchick, Gerchick Real Estate. We're here again with our favorite property manager, Harry Dahlia from Real Estate and Beyond. Today we're going to be talking about security deposits, and security deposits are so important because as a landlord, if you don't handle them right, or your property manager doesn't handle them right, it can put you at great risk. Additionally, you don't want to give someone back their money when it wasn't when they don't deserve it. You certainly want to if they deserve it, but we have statute here in Arizona, exactly how it's handled. And so we've asked Harry to come in today and just talk primarily about security deposits. We do have guests in the room. If you guys have questions, please speak up so that we pick it up on audio. And Harry, I want to introduce you to Harry Dahlia, not only a very good property manager, but also one of my personal friends. Thank you, Harry.
Good afternoon. I'm Harry Dahlia, Real Estate and Beyond. Today we'll be talking about security deposits. I thought that was kind of catchy. Shut up and give me my money. I put security deposits up there with a dollar sign. A lot of people have questions about security deposits, both owners, as yourselves, and tenants. I always get the joy every month of people are saying, I want my security deposit back. I was like, we'll see. It's really up to you and the owner. A lot of people, what is a security deposit? So really the definition is a security deposit is any money a landlord takes from a tenant other than advance payment of rent. The security deposit deserves to protect you, the landlord, against, if they violate the terms of the lease or the rental agreement. It may be used to cover damage for the property, cleaning, key replacement, back rent, late charges. So you have to be very specific on how you collect the security deposit, but also how you disperse the security deposit. And again, like Linda says, what's great about Arizona is all the rules are right there, both for the owners and the tenants. I use Hall, Holiday, and Holiday for my attorneys. So anytime I have a question, they're always there for us. That's the great thing. I've used them for 8 years now, and I've never lost a case. So that's a great thing about a team. Another question is, a lot of out-of-state owners are like, how much can I charge? Typically, you can charge a month and a half. So if the rent is $1,000, you can go up to $1,500. And that includes like cleaning deposit, non-refundable fees. If you gotta put a non-refundable fee in there, it's got to be disclosed at the signing of the lease. Now I put this in here, the asterisk. Real estate is negotiable. We had another lady previously. If you're an owner, you own your own places. I mean, it's your property. Sometimes you can negotiate 2 months in advance. The law is the law, but if you own it, you kind of you sort of have a leniency because it's your property. And you can say, look, I want 2 months security deposit, or you don't have to rent here. So you sort of have, me, I'm a licensed agent, I go by the status quo, a month and a half. So sometimes people ask me that. Well, I want 2 months. I was like, well, really it's a month and a half. That's the standard here in Arizona. This is a good one. When the tenant moves out in the last 30 days, when you give it vacate, they'll just say, well, just use my security deposit. Well, no, you can't do that. It's stated right in the lease that I have. The lease that I have is not the Arizona lease. It's developed by lawyers. So the lease that I have is basically to protect you as a seller, or the owner too. And it specifically states that the security deposit is for what we just talked about, which would be this. Cover damages to property, cleaning, replacement, or back rent. It's not for the last day. Now, if they don't do that, then you have an option you can actually give them a notice, a 5-day notice, and you do the eviction process, or you can just let them go for the whole month. It's really up to you as the owner. You have to it's kind of like, you gotta weigh your cost and benefits. Are they a good tenant? Do they have the money? I mean, a lot goes into it, or some people are just by the book, just evict them. I want them out of there. Now, in our lease, what we do is we tell the tenant, you have to give us a 30-day notice in advance. Because that allows me, if I'm working for you, I can start marking the property right away. And it goes two ways. The tenant can give us notice, 30-day notice, or you, the owner, if you don't want to renew their lease, then you just give them a notice not to renew. But it's got to be within 30 days. You can't do partial. A lot of times the tenant will say, well, last year I moved in the September 11th, so I have until the 11th of this year. No, it doesn't work like that. We always go, in Arizona, it's 30 days, calendar days. And we always start on the 1st. Now, if you don't hire a property manager, when I do take over properties for owners, they'll actually say, if the tenant moved on the 11th, that's the move-in date. It's very confusing. So when I do take over properties, I have to read the lease specifically. So a lot of times what I like to do is renew the tenant in my lease. That way I explain to the tenant, look, you're at the end of your lease, it starts on the 1st, it's not the 11th anymore, as an example. And as soon as they give us notice, the ticker starts for both sides, both for the owner and the tenant. Now, when you give a 30-day notice, like if I give a 30-day notice not to renew with a tenant, I got to do it before, or I can actually hand deliver that notice right here on July 1st. But there has to be 31 days in the calendar. If it's less than 31 days, then I can't do it. I got to do it the day before. Now, what's tricky, sometimes the tenants will give me a 30-day notice, but they might give it to me on the 2nd, the 3rd, or the 4th. And I don't say anything. And at the end of the lease, they'll say, where's my security deposit? Well, I'm sorry, you don't get your security deposit back because you didn't give me a proper 30-day notice. Yeah, but you didn't tell me. I was like, well, it's in the lease. I work for you as a seller. It's not my job to notify the tenant, one, to properly give a 30-day notice. So that's why I put the calendar up here, because it's very important when that notice is given. Now, when I give a notice not to renew, I always certify and mail it. That way I have proof that they received it. So if I did it like in June right here, I know it takes about 2 days to get to the home. If they refuse it, I still have it on record that it went to the house online. So I'm still safe. I still give them a date of notice, because at the end of the month they'll say, well, I never got my renewal or a notice to vacate. Well, that's because you didn't pick it up from the post office. Now it returned back to me, but I still have proof that it was there before the 1st, so we need to get you out of there. And I always call them up, if I said on the 1st, I'll call on Wednesday and say, hey, look, I just want to let you know that the owner, he doesn't want to renew the lease, so I just want to give you a heads up. I just sent you notice, you might want to pick that up in the mail. Sometimes they ignore me, so I just scan and I email it to them, and then I send in regular mail too. But you always have to inform them. With the move-out inspection, a lot of times when we do a lease, we give the tenant a move-in inspection form, which means we have pictures and everything. We know how the place is when they move in. They have 72 hours to give us back the move-in inspection. If they see anything that they don't, they want to negate. If they don't give it back to me within 72 hours after signing the lease, it says specifically on the bottom, you're accepting the house as is. And that's very important for you as the owner, because if the tenant doesn't give that back to me, I put it in their file, and I'll just say not returned. So then when they go back and they move out, I just pull that sheet out and say, look, you didn't give it to me, so I'm gonna have to charge you. And of course there's confrontation and all that, but that's why you hire me. The move-out inspection is required by Arizona state law. The tenant has the right to be at the inspection, and there's one exception. If you evict the tenant and you fear for your life, the tenant doesn't have to be there. Now, when I have a tenant that I evict, I pretty much know them. I'll just bring one of my guys, one of my vendors that are bigger than me, and we do an inspection with them. So, you know, a lot of times, usually when a tenant requests the right of an inspection, those are your good tenants. Like I had a lady, she rented a house in Tapatio, $1,600 a month. Her security deposit was $1,600. She makes $100,000 a year. She's single. I already knew the house was going to be pristine. So when we went there, there's no questions asked. The owner was coming in from Massachusetts. She moved out August 31st. The owner actually moved all her stuff in September 2nd with no corrections to it. So I just give the money right away. And I tell the owners, like, look, luckily the owner was in town. We went through it, and even she agreed. She's like, wow, this is better than I bought it. But that's always the nice thing when you get tenants like that. So usually those are your better tenants. Now, when you do a move-out inspection, a lot of owners ask me, well, how many days do I have in order to respond to the tenant? It's 14 business days. It's not calendar days, it's business days. So I think for this month, you know, if I did a move-out inspection, I had until Tuesday, I believe, until I gave out the security disposition letters. And I just thought, what I did was, if you can pass these out, guys. A lot of people ask me, you know, what's a security disposition letter? Security deposit disposition letter, that's for you and Mike. If you look at this, again, I use Andy Hall. I use all his forms. So if there's any question when I go to court, these are Andy's forms. So you basically look at the form, you say to the tenant. Now if they don't give you a forwarding address, you mail it back, you mail it to the previous address. So if that was your property at, I don't know, 100 Main Street, you mail it back to 100 Main Street because the tenant failed to give you a forwarding address. That way, you know, you've done it within 14 business days. Is it going to come back to you? Yeah, it's going to come back to you. And then you just list the security deposit, say it's $1,000. You list the home, where they rent it, and you give, you know, whether you're keeping X amount of money, whether you're giving money back out of $1,000 as an example. But say, for instance, you know, it's August 31st, and they don't hand the key in until September 5th. Well, guess what? I charge them rent for those 5 days because they failed to comply to the lease. I was supposed to get my key back on August 31st. Just simple things like that. Damages to the unit. Worst case scenario is they trash the house. You get an itemized list. That doesn't mean you have to do the repairs, but you have a vendor or, you know, somebody like me. I'll give you an itemized list. I'll send my guy over. You know, clean the carpets. You know, 2 shades were missing. The faucet in the bathroom was busted. The backyard wasn't cleaned. They left debris in the garage, stuff like that. You know, it might cost you, I don't know, $568. You can charge that back to the tenant. As long as you can define the fee in an itemized list, you can do that, as long as they're legitimate. Now, wear and tear, you know, that's questionable. Like paint, stuff like that. It's like when you paint the house. You know, if they moved in, you just painted the house, and they come back, and you know, there's scratch marks or stuff or scuffs on you can charge them that. You can charge back for that too. Yard maintenance. If you have pool maintenance, if they damage the pool, if they're in charge of the pool, you can charge them back for that too. You know, even if they, you know, if you don't, you know, if it's a regular, but say if they move out in the middle of the night. You know, it's August 20th, and you found out on August 21st they move out in the middle of the night. Well, guess what? The clock starts August 21st. So now what you have to do is you have to, what I do is I put an abandonment notice on there to save you money so you don't have to evict them. I got my ways of finding out if they abandon. I call the electricity company. If the electric's off, pretty much they're out of there. So what I do is I put an abandonment notice on the door. I certified mail it, so say it's August 21st. They don't respond by August 26th, I get to change the locks. I just saved you $425 eviction fees. and it gets me in there faster. Now if I get a court date, if I do it on the 22nd, then I have a court date the 29th, usually it's 7 days, and then they have 5 days to move out. If they don't move out, then you gotta call the writ. That could take another, depending if you don't know the constable. I pretty much know every constable in town, so usually I get it within 2 or 3 days. Like I had one down in 85006, Van Buren 24th Street. My favorite constable, Mr. Doug Clark. I ordered the writ last Wednesday. He called me Thursday, and he served it the next day. I love him. I always vote for him. I always donate to his campaign. But that's having a relationship here in Phoenix. Not that I evict too many people, but when I do, I know the constables. I try to accommodate for their time, because a lot of times what they want you to do is they want you to meet them at the property with a vendor to change the locks right there and then, so they don't have to keep coming back. So that's another way of, another scenario is when they move out unexpectedly, you still have to accord for their security deposits. And even when you evict them, you still have to send them a letter saying that your money was just, you're not getting your money back, but this is what your money went towards. So, say you got a fourplex, it's $500 a month, they got a security deposit of $500. They didn't pay the month's rent, that's pretty much going towards the rent, but you can always charge them back too. You can always take them to small claims court too if you want to. That's another, or we just send it to collections.
How many days did you say it was when you changed the locks on the abandonment?
It's 5 days.
Oh, 5 days.
Yeah, you have to, what I do is I take a picture, I put it on the door, and I certify mail it the same day. That way when I change the locks, I have proof. Because if the tenant, if the tenant comes back saying, well, you didn't do it properly, I was like, well, yes, I did. I have it right here. I have a picture on your door. I have a certified letter that went to your house 2 days ago and you refused it. And then if they have the belongings, then you have to, that's a whole other mess. So a lot of times I try to work with the tenant to get their belongings out of there, because if you don't, you gotta wait 21 days. It's in your best interest to get that stuff out of there, get it rent ready, and re-rent it. So I've been doing this for 8 years now. I've only had to get a moving truck once, because I knew the lady was gonna pull games on me. So I hired 2 men in the truck, believe it or not, and what I like about them is they'll actually list what's in the box. Because that's one of the things, if you move it, you have to send them an itemized list, what's in the box. And then you can charge them for storage and all that. So luckily, we got the lady out, and the owner ended up putting it in storage, and she ended up keeping it. Because the lady had no way, she was a foreign national, and she got deported back to Italy. She kept all her stuff, she had like CDs, TVs, and all that, so whatever the owner got, I don't know.
What do you do with all the cats?
We have to call the Humane Society. That's another story. The Humane Society is very, very, they're very good. When you call them, they want to know the tenant's name and number, because they want to press charges for cruelty to the animals. You don't open the door and let them out. Even that's against the law. Yeah, good question. Do you have any questions so far? Just trying to be, I just kind of did an overview of security.
Well, you talked about the 30-day notices and stuff. When would you do like a 5-day or immediate eviction?
A 5-day notice? A 5-day notice is usually, well, usually I do it between the 5th and the 7th of each month. I do it religiously. I have like 150 properties. I run a report, whoever has not paid, I just send it out. I don't waste time anymore. I just, benefit of the doubt. Even I know if Susie's coming in Friday paying, if it's Thursday, I just send it out. And then they call me, oh, I got a security deposit letter, do you want to evict me? Because it's Mr. Hall's, it's very intimidating. I was like, well, as long as you pay, just disregard it. But I still, I just give that to everybody in my house, or everyone I manage. I have to give a disposition letter, because that's company policy. Immediate eviction, say for instance, somebody that got busted by the cops, and they're in jail. You can do immediate eviction. Does it mean immediate like that today? No. But every one of my tenants, they sign a crime-free addendum.
Right.
So what you can do is you submit the letter to Mr. Hall, a whole fill-out form, and the reason would be is for not following the lease. And then you give them, you know, the crime-free addendum, you give them the lease, and then you give them the police report. And then you go to court, and they'll say, and they boot them out.
Okay, what about like excessive damage or something? You go by and you look through an open window and you see that their ceiling fans are missing,
Yeah, you have to
things are
take-
busted up.
You'd have to put a claim in. I could take it to small claims court or a collections agency, all that stuff.
So you can't evict them for
Yeah, you can do that.
damaging or?
Yeah, yeah. What we, in that case situation, so if I manage one of your properties, or if you see it, you give them a 48-hour notice. So if today's Thursday, 48 hours from now, so if you give it, you know, like right now at 12:20, you go in the door, well, Saturday, you're gonna be there at 12:15. You're gonna have your guy, or maybe you have a key to the property, and you're gonna go and inspect. I would always make sure you always bring somebody else with you,
Okay.
just in case. And then you just go through the property. And if you see something you don't like, you're the owner or the property manager, you know, I would report back to you and say, look, they're not taking care of this property. We need to get them out. And then from there, you want to do is give them a 5-day welfare check. That means if they don't, you know, comply within 5 days, to get the place back in shape, you can evict them for failure in not keeping the property adequately. I had one lady, City of Phoenix, the owner, I've had him for 5 years now. He's a lawyer in California. He's got 12 units. South Phoenix, Maryland area. This lady was a hoarder. You know, she had stuff on the outside fence. She had the whole backyard filled up, and I gave her a 5-day notice. I went in the 6th day, so I took her to court. So she was crying, oh no. I was like, it's not to me, it's up to the owner. Because really, it's hard to, you have to take the emotions out. It's business. So long story short, then I did the writ, and then, believe it or not, she's still there, but she cleaned up her property. By the time I got the writ, the constable came to the door, she was crying. Within 2 days, the whole backyard was clean.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, the owner's like, it's up to you, Harry, you deal with it, whatever you feel is necessary. I'm like, oh, okay. But she paid that back, she paid me back, she paid back the $425 and the $225 for the writ. So the owner was not out of pocket at all. Because I knew she had to stay there. But I told her, I said, you gotta clean it up. Now, once you get the City of Phoenix in, a lot of times they'll work with you, especially if you're a property manager and they know there's a tenant in there. I just tell them, look, you know, we're doing the best we can, you know, we're fixing up the property. The day that they came, the fence, the wooden fence, we installed a whole new wooden fence. So they saw the owner was trying to do something. What they don't like is when they notify you and you don't do anything, they don't like that, because that's kind of like an insult to their job. They're like, ooh, we're gonna show this guy. But if you know, a lot of times, you know, I have out-of-state owners, I'll even have out-of-country owners. By the time they get the notice, even though you tell them to send me the notice, they send it to the owner, who's ever on record. So, you know, if it's in Canada, they might not get it for like 7 days later. And then when I get it, I immediately send a email to the blight information email. I got it on my email address, and I give them the number and the address. You know, please, you know, I just got this, you know, we're working on the situation, we just noticed the tenant, and we're working on it. Please give us an extension of 2 weeks, or whatever. If I think I need 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they usually give it to you. They want to communicate, they want to help, they want to work with you, because it's in their best interest to clean up the property in the area. Does that answer your question about notices?
Yeah, thanks.
So yeah, a lot of people think it's calendar days, it's actually 14 business days. Now when you tell the tenant this, they want the money immediately, of course. And we tell them, you know, look, you know, we're gonna do an inspection, you're free to be there, we're gonna do it this day. I try to do it the day that they move out. I really do. I'd rather, you know, just get it done with. Sometimes, you know, it's 1 or 2 days before the end of the month. But even though if I did it on the 30th, I still have until, the clock starts on September 1st, because that's their lease. Okay, retention of the security deposit. What can I take from the security deposit if they don't, you know, keep the property in shape? I always take before and after, when my guys, you know, clean up the property. they take before photos. So what I do is I just take those photos, put in a file, and then I take after photos. And then I compare it against the checklist. You know, what was the property's condition, you know, when they first moved in versus when they moved out. Again, you can take unpaid rent, damages of normal wear and tear, like you said, missing fans, the refrigerator's not clean, the stove is not clean. If you got a fireplace, if there's, you know, junk in the fireplace, you can charge them for that. Window blinds, the windows are not clean. You know, if they didn't shampoo the carpets, if the tile's dirty, you know, just little things like that. I mean, that stuff starts adding up when you got to start renewing. You know, if you got a big house like 1,500 square feet, or even a unit, you know, if you got one of the, like a fourplex, a unit, usually to turn a unit like that is like between $300 and $500. By the time you get the cleaner in there and you got to do the spot painting, you know, we always try to do the spot painting instead of doing the Taj Mahal. We don't have to paint the whole unit. We don't. And when the tenant moves out, again, I send you a list, and that way, you know, you know, we talk and say, well, this is what I would recommend. But if I work for you, you tell me what you want to do. I would recommend something, but I always work for you, so you tell me what to do. I'll email you and say, here's my recommendations, and most of the time you'll say, yeah, go ahead and do it, or, you know, say, well, can I charge them for this? Can I charge them for that? Yes, no, yes, no. Then we finally get to a number. And then we disperse a check out one of these letters. And it's done. And then we just put it in the file. Let's see. This is the letter right here. Again, I sort of jumped the ship here, but a lot of times people like to see this in their hands so they absorb it. This is the only letter I've used in 8 years. It's basically Mr. Hall's. I've never had it challenged yet. Knock on wood. I just follow the rules. So if the tenant messes up, I work for you. I'll say, hey, this is what the tenant did. Here's the before and after pictures. You'll say, yeah. Most of the time, the owners will say, you know, charge them for whatever I can within the law. So that's what I do. And I always give out of my deductions. Now, if I can't get the work done within 14 days, as long as I have an itemized list estimate from a vendor, that's good enough. And I just put it in there. I'm pretty detailed. You know, I'll say, you know, missing 2 blinds, carpet cleaning, $125. Keys weren't given till the 5th. I'm charging this amount of rent plus a trip fee of $25. And then if there's any money left over, I'll send it to the tenant. Okay. What happens when you don't comply within 14 business days? The tenant can be rewarded up to 2 times the amount of the deposit plus damages. Now, how do they do that? They'd have to file a claim in small claims court. And if you're out of state owner, then you have to hire a lawyer, or no, then you have to come back. But if I'm a property manager, I can represent you. So that's why we always try to do this with 14 days. It's like religious. It's like when 5-day notices, they go out with between the 5th and the 8th of each month. Why? Because when the children know the parents are looking, they usually perform. Like when I send these out, that's amazing. Then I get rent checks like 2 or 3 days later in my mailbox. They put them in there at night. I was like, all right, the letter worked. Now, when you sell the property, what happens to the security deposit? Well, that gets transferred to the new owner. All this is done at the close of title. I love it when real estate agents, you know, when they write on the property, and then I think it's page 8 with the comments. All deposits of blah 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 were transferred to from the seller to the buyer. It's already in there. It's already in the purchase contract. So it's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of redundant. But yeah, all this is done at title. When you're selling the property, I give the buyer agent the lease, the ledger, all that stuff. So at the close of escrow, everything's right there. I give a copy of the lease to the escrow lady, and she'll verify that the money's there. So if I'm managing your property, 9 times out of 10, it's taken out of the proceeds. So say you're selling your house to him. I've got a $1,000 security deposit of yours. It's usually taken out of the closing, and then I send you back the $1,000. out of the trust account? And that's a good question. Another question is, well, where is the security deposit held? Usually 9 times out of 10, it's in the trust account, which, you know, I use PropertyWare, so on your monthly report, you'll actually see a column that says deposit. Some owners want to hold on to the deposit. I don't. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. What I have to do then is I have to disclose that on the lease, saying that the owner's holding the security deposit. So if the tenant moves out in pristine condition, then you're responsible to return the security deposit back. So I leave it up